correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPGs, a podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm Steve, and well, you only get one Steve this week, but that's okay because I've got another voice that will be joining me, and you'll recognize that voice if you've been listening to the show. But before I get to all that, I want to take a minute to talk about another podcast that is a member of the D20 Radio Network. And this week, that podcast is going to be a podcast called We Fix Games, which is, well, it's a community-driven podcast where the co-hosts Laura and Jerica lovingly tear apart video games to figure out what makes them work and what could make them better. Laura tends more towards like puzzle games, story-rich stuff, psychological horror. Jerica is a little more beat-em-ups and action-heavy, and so together they break down mechanics, characters, themes, and then kind of like talk about how maybe we could rebuild this using, you know, a set of some sort of rules. I don't know what they are because I honestly haven't listened to the podcast because I'm not that big of a video games person, but seeing that description for the first time, some of this might have stuff I could steal for GMing, so I may have to check them out. So, and I have met Laura. I've not met Jerica. Laura is a very, very cool person, so check them out. Again, it's called We Fix Games, and if you follow the link in the show notes, description, whatever of this, there'll be a link to that, as well as the D20 Radio Network Discord, where you can find all sorts of other gaming podcasts. But with that being said, today in our Discord, the combination of yesterday and today, Dak, our GM for the Exalted AP, was mentioning that he had a campaign where he had a player that he was having a situation with, and then today kind of posted something indicating that communication was had, and it prompted him to write an 11-point manifesto on how to play, in your specific case, Exalted, but this really applies to any narratively focused campaign, because I don't think narrative focus, again, as I talked about a couple episodes back, really belongs to any one system. You can do that in any game. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Welcome, Deck, for the, first official time, I guess, sort of.
Right. So GMing APs don't count towards my Steve counter?
Well, see, that's kind of a gray area.
Right.
They might. But being as that's not an official rule, I don't know. Maybe we'll give you the STE for right now, and we'll figure that rest out later.
Okay. So how this all happened. A little bit of background. I started playing RPGs in 1990 because I got sat with a couple other nerds in an English class in the 7th grade. And so for 35 years, I've been mostly running. I've been running a lot more than I've been playing games. Every mainstream big name publisher, all the way down to little indie RPGs. And so I got into Exalted about 2008, 2009. And I've been running it seriously since 2020. And by seriously, I mean, I started a game in April 2020 and didn't wrap it until December 2025. And then the players from that game were like, no, dear God, we must play another game. Okay, fine. And so January this year, we started the same group as God-Blooded, they're basically just regular guys with a little bit of divine heritage. They don't really have a whole lot of firepower. You know, they're not exalts. You would have to take a group of 100, 120 of them, something like that, to go fight an exalt on a fair fight. And then yesterday, game session, we had a problem. So we had one player who he showed up late because he lost track of time. We were playing on Thursday instead of Tuesday because scheduling issues. And he seemed kind of distracted. And then we're in a climactic scene where the PCs are confronted by an abyssal. This is a character that can kill them all without breaking a sweat. And they've just rescued some prisoners from his camp. And he's like, you know what? it's not worth it. I like your style. As long as you return my property, you guys can go on. You're, I respect your courage. And they were obviously not going to hand over the prisoners back to him because he's killing prisoners to make more ghosts to be part of his ghost army. So they weren't going to hand those over. And one of my players just goes, to hell with it. I'm going to charge him. It just launches at this terrifying embodiment of death that could kill her without breaking a sweat. Then another player goes, well, I'm going to back her up. Third player goes, I'm going to get the prisoners and start going the other direction. So all of which are very heroic things to do in a situation like this. But basically, it would take a miracle for anything to happen, for anything to go well for them. And I asked this player who had come in late and was a little distracted. I said, well, what does your character do? And he goes, it doesn't matter. And like I will tell you, to have your player say it doesn't matter just is gutting as a GM for me, at least for me, because the whole point of Exalted, narrative games in general, anything like that, is that the characters, their actions do matter, and they have narrative weight. They shape the story. So the miracle occurred. The three that fought, the two that fought, and the one that got the prisoners away, all exalted, and we're dealing with the fallout from that next game session. But I really wanted to unpack exactly what went wrong, and there was a lot of assumptions that about how narrative heavy RPGs work that I realized I'd never articulated, I'd never said it outright. And so now in my player's case, the situation is, he's got 20 plus years of reading TTRPG books, less than 5 years of playing them. And I'm not against people that read TTRPG books for funsies, but it's not the same as playing. There's a lot of, stuff that's not in the black and white. But a lot of times players coming from computer role-playing games, or how should I say, heavily GM authored campaigns, also known as railroads, or optimization focused tables. That's the ones where, like, you've got your wizard has the first 3 spells already like preloaded, knows what he's going to cast, and the fighter's going to go this way, and they take down monsters with the precision of a Navy SEAL team going through a shoot house. Like, that is a valid way to play some games, and I'm nothing against that. But I titled the document "How to Play Exalted" because I'm running Exalted. But it's any narrative forward or narrative focused game, and a high player agency table culture. Okay. And so I think a lot of experienced role players are going to look at this and go, "Oh yeah, of course. We've internalized these over years and years of play by playing with a bunch of different people of different styles, but players coming from a different play culture or newer players, they may eventually pick them up by just, osmosis, but I don't think we talk about them explicitly often enough. GM advice. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you're exactly right. Like I skimmed through this and I went, holy crap. Like this is a lot of stuff that I know in a lot of Steve and I's discussions, we skirt around or say a lot of this in some form, but you kind of putting it in a document, and I would say, and again, if you're all right with me doing this, I'm going to either put a link to this in a Google Drive somewhere, or there'll be a link for people to look at it somewhere in the show notes. I would say, take something like this, give it to your players at session 0.
Yeah, I wish I had.
Yeah, because like some of this is stuff that and if you're okay with me jumping to your first point, your first point is action does not require consensus, and I think that is something that, especially if you're a newly organized table, is something that doesn't. Most of us resist doing that at a newly organized table.
Right.
Most of us that have played for a while, just because we don't want to step on everyone else's toes and mess up their fun.
Right. And unfortunately, that ends up with a 45-minute discussion about a 30-second decision. And it leads to analysis paralysis. And also it flattens the distinctions between the characters. Like, you should have built characters that are not the same. I mean, unless you're playing an RPG where you are all playing members of a squad, in a military sense, you don't have the same training, you don't have the same attitudes, you don't have the same values, you don't have the same priorities. You don't have to agree with the group. You can disagree with the group. You can split off from the group. You can pursue your own priorities. Um, I was playing a character in a game recently that had the flaws cautious, stubborn, and rebellious. And he wanted to, and this was a cyberpunk style game, he wanted to go in and just murk the receptionist as soon as you got in the door. And everybody's like, no, 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 no. I can just randomly murder people. Well, the receptionist pulls out a submachine gun and starts blasting at the rest of the party. And I swear to God, I played a sulk for the next 45 minutes. Like this character was just not having it. But it was, it made, but he was still working with the team. He was just being very like, I just wanted to kill the receptionist. We got to wait till she starts blasting. And, so you have differences. And that's where good drama comes from, is that we all have differences.
Yeah.
What's the thing? If everyone's thinking alike, then someone's not thinking. You
Right.
know, like businesses spend millions of dollars bringing in consultants to try to get their executives to not all group think together in exactly the same direction, like a herd of lemmings.
Hmm.
Why are we doing that in our hobby? And I understand being cautious about confrontation, but you can't play a dramatic game without some drama.
True. And I know, I remember we talked about it on the show, I'm going to say in the last 6 months. Seth Gorkowski did a video about, I think he called it open play versus closed play,
Right.
where, you talk about this ahead of time as a table and go, hey, look, just because I'm playing a grumpy cuss of a character or I'm
Right.
playing angry doesn't mean that Steve, the player, is angry. It
Hmm.
means the character is angry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can be playing in character and seem like I'm really mad at you, but I'm
Mhm.
not mad at you. Our characters are mad
Right.
at each other.
Right. And that's exactly my second point, which is that disagreement is play. Characters can argue, disagree, clash, pursue different solutions. Hell, you can fight a duel at high noon on Main Street, and the players aren't in conflict. And I think sometimes, people get a little bit too emotionally invested in their characters to the point that, like, if you make their character mad, you have made them mad, and I don't think that's healthy. Like, reality is reality, and the game is the game. And I
Yeah.
got it. It's an emotionally engaging game, but you got to be able to watch your character get pissed off without getting pissed off yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think I try to, in a sense, sometimes play from kind of a, I'm directing the action of this person in the film perspective,
Right.
in a sense. You know what I mean? Where, like, yes, this is my character, but I'm going, well, this seems like something they would do, and it's going to be interesting. It might not be the best choice, but it should be fun.
Hmm. Yeah. And but and kind of like also in that point, I included another player choosing a dramatic action is not a signal for other characters to withdraw from the scene. Multiple characters can have meaningful moments in the same conflict. Because I know a lot of players, they start worrying about spotlight management. Don't. That's engaging with the game on a meta level. Stop it. That's my job. you know, it shouldn't be a case of, well, this person is doing their thing, so I need to be quiet for the next 45 minutes. No, no, this person is doing their thing. You can do your thing, whatever that may be. There's a
Yeah.
reason trying to have, there's a reason it's a role playing group.
Right. And like, that's an interesting thing for you to bring up because,
Mhm.
I've noticed, especially going through editing our AP episodes, that I talk a lot.
Yeah.
And I know I said this on an episode talking with someone else recently, but some of that comes from, I have a background. I worked in radio early on,
Mhm.
and dead air is the enemy of everyone who's ever worked in radio. So I have this kind of compulsion when I'm sitting in front of a microphone, if nothing's happening, to fill the space.
In a if you watch a play or a movie, sometimes the most dramatic things happen in silence.
You're not wrong. But it's something I sometimes really have to kind of like force myself to, or try to force myself to pull back,
Mhm.
because I want it to be a game with everyone involved. And playing online also is a bit different sometimes than at the table, because
Yeah.
you've even said it can be very, very hard, specifically online, to sort out multiple people talking at once.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I have an auditory processing disorder, so if I get three people trying to talk over each other, all I hear is and so I can't cope with that. Please don't all talk at once, but your characters can act at once.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like, and part of this, the player also said, well, I was going to see how this other character's action resolved, and I was like, no, you need to act. You need to act, or you have chosen not to. And there may be circumstances where choosing not to act is the valid thing. Disengagement is different from being cautious. Okay, your character doesn't always need to take the most aggressive action, fight, take risks, but your character needs to stay engaged. You should stay engaged and continue making choices. Fear, retreat, hesitation, negotiation, protecting somebody, escaping, sacrificing something, and refusing to do something. Those are all meaningful choices. They can all create drama. They can all create good moments at the table. You can even say, my character is honestly pants wetting terrified and locks up. It's interesting characterization right there. Now we've learned
Hmm.
something about your character. Who are you under pressure? That was the whole goal of this scene, was you're in a situation that is Kobayashi Maru. You are not winning. You are not going to whip out your sword and kill this dude. Who is your character under those circumstances? That's what I wanted to know. So then 4 is just one of my pet peeves. Interact with the fiction, interact with the world, describe what your character is going to do. Never say, can I roll for? Because my answer will be no. Unless your character is playing craps. No.
See, this to me sounds very much, and I'm sure you've heard me say it on the show, the line I heard from Jim Davies of WebDM about play
Mhm.
the world, not your character sheet.
Yes, yes. Don't go down your character sheet looking for a button to push that'll give you the magic answer. Tell me what you're doing. And if you say, I'm looking at I want to go look at this fortress and count the guard towers. Okay. I determine, well, you can see the guard towers because you're not blind and none of them are invisible. Okay, so there's 6 guard towers. You don't need to roll for that, for God's sake. They're guard towers. You're not trying to count the snipers hiding in the bushes. You're trying to count guard towers. And so if I say there's 6 guard towers and each of them looks like they have 2 or 3 guards in them, don't say, well, can I roll my awareness to see if I get more details? No, you can't. I tell you when to roll. And I only tell you when to roll if it's interesting and if failures is possible. Theoretically, you could not see an entire fort with guard towers, but I'm not, you know.
Yeah, that's a thing, and I've witnessed you do that a lot with this stuff that I've done with Cyclone, where you're just like, no, okay, yeah, you're gonna do that. That's what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah, yeah. You're world class expert in this. It will not be a challenge. You will get what you want. What do you do with it? Do I need
Hmm.
you to roll to roll to pick the lock on every stupid window you decide to go through? No, no, because difficulty 1, and you're rolling like 15 dice. You're gonna get a success,
Hmm.
and it
Well, and
wouldn't
I
be
think,
interesting to fail. To be honest.
yeah, yeah, I think it's, and I think too, if you so to speak, like you're saying, interact with the fiction first or play the world, sometimes it's an interesting action that you come up with that there may not be a good role for.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just, well, narratively, this seems like what would happen following that.
Yeah, yeah. Do I need you to roll persuasion if you've just offered somebody exactly what they want? No. You offered them exactly what they want. Nobody's going to turn that down. You
Right.
could be you could be like stumbling over your words and everything. They're going to hear, "Oh, you're giving me what I wanted? All right, great. Nice doing business with you, man." So, number 5 is there is rarely a perfect answer. Exalted is a game, and so many role-playing games are a game about difficult decisions made under uncertainty. You act without complete information. You do not have guaranteed success, and you don't always know the consequence. That's intention. There's no tension if otherwise. There's no dramatic moments.
Like to me, that's one of the things I come to RPGs for.
Yeah.
It's it's that, well, I'm not sure, but I need to do something, and I wonder what happens if I poke that thing with a stick.
And sometimes it explodes, and sometimes the flakes off, and it turns out to be a diamond. You never know.
Right. But like
Hmm.
that to me creates, like you said, it creates the that uncertainty, that gray makes
Hmm.
it interesting, because if it's all defined, we're just playing a game of probabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I obviously everyone works different mentally, neurologically, whatever.
Hmm.
But if I want to play with probabilities, I'll go play a tactical,
Hmm.
war game, or I'll play a
Exactly.
computer game where I can manipulate, the code by, I know if I do this, this happens, etc. You can exploit that, and there's a certain enjoyment, a certain
Mhm.
whatever that anyone can get out of that. But for me, that's a completely different sensation than the exploration and uncertainty of this story we're working through.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of times, at least online, a lot of the discussion that you're going to hear is about optimization, safety, consensus heavy play culture, and that's great in as far as it goes. But what you end up sometimes is play that is focused more on avoiding loss than on creating dramatic moments, than on creating engaging stories, and then on creating moments where you do things that you did not think you were going to do, but holy crap, it worked. And those are
Yeah,
the memories that people talk about years later. They don't talk about the time that they stacked so many modifiers that they had a 2% chance of failure and obliterated the enemy. They
right.
don't talk, nobody talks about that. The time you're like, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen, but you know what? I stepped up to that orc. Hey, and something interesting happened. Yeah, that's what people will talk about later. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's where your interesting moments happen. It's not in the statistics of it, so to speak.
yeah. Next point was meaningful choices matter more than optimal choices. The goal isn't always to find the safest or most efficient answer. I want you to make a choice that'll tell me who is your character, what do they value, what are they willing to risk, and for whom or for what. Failure, sacrifice, fear, mistakes, that's good drama. That's dramatically important. It has narrative weight. And the other thing I'll say is 9 times out of 10, maybe more, your first instinct is more dramatically truthful than a prolonged deliberation. You can talk yourself out of greatness any day. We all can. Like, I've done it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think like you said, sometimes it's just do the thing. And like, like I was thinking about this tonight at work, like, because in Exalted you have the the intimacies and all this, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm going, like in my case, I think I have a pretty good handle on who Cyclone is. Whether that reflects the actual intimacies written on the character sheet,
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. But like the
And and that's
character and
why
the
and that's why like I am always all about, if you find that the intimacies you wrote down don't fit how you're playing the character, change the intimacies before you change how you're playing the character.
Yeah, and like I don't know, you as the GM obviously have a different perspective on the character than I do, but like I feel like there's a moderately at least defined person there.
Right.
Whether it reflects exactly what's said on the sheet, I don't know, but I'm happy
Mhm.
playing the character that I have, not
Right.
necessarily the one that's on the page.
Yeah, there's a school of thought that says, that really pushes against, and I'm not saying I 100% agree with it because, well, I play Exalted and we have intimacy. There's a school of thought that says, don't write any of that nonsense down until you find out who the character is by playing. And I think there's a validity to that in a lot of cases. Obviously with Exalted, the intimacies are the spine of the social interaction system. So you need to have them. But I'm also not the guy that's going to be like, oh, well, violated your intimacy. Blah, blah, blah. Nah.
Like,
If
I
you
think,
discover in playing that your intimacies are not what you thought they were when you first started thinking about the character, change them.
yeah. And like this, I remember back to, this was very early in my role playing career, back in the, I want to say mid 90s, we were playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Right.
And if you remember, you had nature and demeanor
Yes.
in
Mhm.
that game. And I
Mhm.
remember I was playing a character that I had patterned quite heavily off of Leon from, well, what is now called Leon the Professional, or just Leon, or what at the time it was called The Professional.
Yeah.
The old assassin movie with John
Mhm.
Reno and Natalie Portman, Gary
Oh, yeah,
Oldman.
yeah. Hmm.
And I remember after the one play session, my storyteller, he goes, "Well, what's your nature?" And he's like, "Well, I think you should a little more this and a little more that." And I'm going, "Well, no, I'm playing the character exactly how I envisioned him.
Hmm.
I just wrote those down because those were the closest things I could find in the book."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I, I I would rather have a character that I can look at it and go, I think I know how Cyclone's going to react to this, than have it be, I would never tell somebody, well, you need to be doing this or that, with your character.
Yeah, and like it wasn't,
Character.
yeah, it wasn't said in a you're playing the character wrong way, but it stuck in my head all these years later that, like, no, I was playing exactly who I intended to play. I don't
Yep.
care what that line on a character sheet tells me. This is the character I had in my head.
Right? So, yeah. Which kind of leads me into point 7, which is exalted characters are passionate and larger than life. Exalts are extraordinary people with powerful convictions, ambitions, loyalties, and flaws. They will challenge each other, disagree, push forward recklessly, argue about morality, and create change through action. And that's intentional. That's part of the game's tone. Okay.
Hmm.
I remember I've told at least one player that if you're not causing at least as much chaos as your average Greek tragic hero, you're probably too tame. You know, you should be causing at least that much chaos because in a lot of the Greek myths, which inspired a lot of the tone of early Exalted, they're about people who, when they're angry, they can kill. They'll kill people like at random that they meet on the road. When they're depressed, they mope and write sad poetry for months. When they're happy, they're drinking a tavern dry. They do everything to 11.
Right.
No Greek tragic hero has held a mild opinion about something in his entire existence. And if he did, they wouldn't have written a play about it. They'd have been like, yeah, well, whatever. What did you do that's interesting? And so, chewing the scenery, dear God, chew the scenery. Have emotional reaction. Play big. Don't shrink your character because you're afraid of taking up space. Because look, the god of being awesome came down and handed you a ticket that says you're a protagonist. Now go do protagonist stuff. So
No, that's fair. Can I ask you a question? This, for anyone who's fairly new to the show, I
yeah.
have played Exalted all of two games.
Hmm.
What now? About 8 sessions total, all with you.
Okay. Hmm.
But in the context of Cyclone,
Yeah.
and I know roughly where we are in what listeners have heard of the story that we have going on versus
Hmm.
where we are playing. Am I
Yeah.
playing him small, or is that more of,
No,
because in a sense,
you're playing him big but hidden because and that's the paradox of the Nightcast.
Mhm.
They're the master thieves. They're not out here picking a pocket. They're out here going on, you know what? This gem dealer has annoyed me. I will do a handshake deal so that this guy can go, rip his heart out while I burn down his shop.
Yeah,
And
we haven't
steal
got quite there yet, but
bag of jewels, you know? Um, y yeah, that's right, I remember where we are in the released episodes, but,
that's
you don't
coming.
a
Yeah.
jewel, bags of jewels. Um, you don't, like, go make contacts in the underworld. No, you hook up with the most powerful information broker in the city and start making deals. You're not
Right.
playing.
And like I think I've intentionally, and I've said this in a couple episodes, I've intentionally been trying to cause chaos in character, but in a manner that no one knows where to frickin' look.
Yes, and and very much in and that cyclone. It's all the misdirection thing, and that's beautiful. That's what the Nightcast is supposed to do. You know.
Okay. So I accidentally got it right. I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
Wow. Nah. I. Yeah. Um.
Or at least a right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Let's
good to know.
see. 8. A timely decision is better than endless deliberation. A flawed decision that moves the story forward is usually better than a prolonged debate looking for a perfect solution because certainty, and that goes back to the whole like you will
Refer to
never,
point five.
yeah, um, momentum matters, narrative momentum matters, and that's and pacing matters. And if you sit here and have a 45-minute conversation in the middle of what's supposed to be a tense negotiation, and you want to have a 45-minute debate amongst the players, what's good, what you're going to say, no, you need to say something to this man because he just asked you a question.
Yeah, and I think
Somebody
that's
else.
on the person GMing in this, in this case, we're talking about you, but if I'm running a game, whatever, I think
Mhm.
sometimes you do need to push your table to go, look, no, this is a split second decision.
Mhm.
Recognize, yes, we're not playing in real time, but we don't get all day to figure this out.
Hmm. Yeah, you've been asked a question, and if you go and huddle and to discuss it, you're going to deeply offend somebody. Well, that's not how men negotiate. That's not how people of honor negotiate. You don't like break for a consultations every 3 minutes. You're not the United Nations. But yeah, or in combat, like dear God, you you don't know what you're going to do. Okay, you're holding your action. Next, sorry.
Yeah. Combat is such a weird thing though because in a sense you're narrating simultaneous action, but it's very difficult to kind of wrap your head around it and
Hmm.
see it the way it would be happening.
Right. Well, like the way I think of it sometimes is, um, it's it's presenting simultaneous action in sequentially in the same sense that like a samurai movie is, there's these three sword fights that are going on at the same time, but it's going to focus on one fight. Then the camera's going to switch to the next fight. Then it's going to switch to the next fight. Then it's going to come back around to the first one.
Mhm.
It's sequential because the audience, the players, the GM can only process one thing at a time.
Right, right. It is the one
But
thing.
in reality, it's going back and forth, and it's the difference between somebody acting first in the round and last in the round might be a second, 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I like about. I don't know how much experience you have playing the Star Wars or the FFG narrative dice, be it Star Wars or Genesis. But
A little bit,
their initiative system works in PC and NPC slots. They're not
right?
now Exalted, obviously, because of how that works, wouldn't work that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But that to me is a really intriguing way to one make it flow really well. And the other sneaky thing that it does is it keeps everyone paying attention because they might be the one going next.
Right. So yeah. The other thing is the next thing, point 9 is exalted requires engagement. Okay. This again, I gotta unpack this. Exalted is an emotionally and creatively demanding game. Characters make meaningful choices under pressure. Scenes can carry intense emotional stakes. Player choices could dramatically change the story and the world. Because of that, it is completely okay to say, I'm too tired, I'm too exhausted tonight. I'm not emotionally present enough for this session. I need to step back for a bit. It is better than trying to push through the game session when you're disengaged, overwhelmed, unable to participate fully. Honest communication is always welcome. The whole reason we were playing on a Thursday is because Tuesday, our normal game day, was my second day of work at a new job, and I had a late meeting, and I didn't get home till 20 minutes before the game was supposed to start. And I said, guys, I can't. I just can't. And I'm conscientious about that as a GM because if I'm having a bad day, nobody's having.
Yeah.
Players have a little bit more freedom to say, I can't. I can't. It's a long day at work. I have no brain cells left. I cannot even. And I'll be like, all right, have yourself a pumpkin spice latte, basic bitch. Uh, no, I'll be like, hey, get some rest. See you next week. Let your brain relax. Because
Yeah, that's
if you're playing as intensely as I'm telling you to do in this document, you can't do it 24/7, and you can't always do it when you want to do it.
yeah. And I think that to kind of tangent here slightly,
Hmm.
people talk about Critical Role and all the this and that, and I haven't watched a lot of their more recent stuff.
Yeah.
But I think what you're hitting on here is the fundamental difference between your average player table and what you're
Hmm.
seeing on Critical Role, because those people are all professional actors.
Right.
And so they have learned, trained, taught themselves how to be on when they're on stage, camera, whatever.
Mhm.
It's not
Absolutely.
it's not, yes, Matt Mercer is a very good GM. Brandon Lee Mulligan's a very good GM. But the fact that they have a table made up of actors who have developed and honed the tools to be on at any given moment adds so much to what we as consumers see in that game, that I think that gets lost so much in people talking about that.
Oh yeah. And the other thing is that you and I balance day job, gaming, other obligations. I game in a house where I've got a 7-year-old daughter. Um, they go to a very nice studio. Nobody bothers them. Nobody has, a a nobody has a sudden crisis because they can't get because their tablet has run out of battery and my wife has to bounce off the game and deal with that. They don't have those distractions. And they're doing this as their day job, not in addition to their day job.
Mhm.
I promise you, if I was getting paid to run my game the way they're getting paid, I would be on schedule. Absolutely, because I would have nothing else to worry about.
Mhm. Yeah,
Nobody but them.
it's a priority thing,
Mhm.
and I think the thing to understand, if I'm understanding kind of what you're saying here, is
Mhm.
yes, us getting together and play, there is some respect of everyone else having also set aside time to do this,
Mhm.
but also recognizing that this is recreation
Yes.
and personal health and well-being trumps community recreation, if that makes
Yeah.
some sort of sense.
Yeah, I'm not the guy that's going to be advocating for like people to just blow off session after session. After a couple of sessions, it's going to be like, look, do you need to step back from the game for a couple of weeks until your schedule calms down or something like that? I've had that conversation. I don't like it. It's part of my job. Well, it's part of my responsibilities as the GM
Mhm.
is to say, all right, you've missed 4 out of the past 5 sets. I don't know that it's worth your while to try to make, but that's a balance you gotta work. That's a
Yeah.
balance you gotta work. Like I play in a game with my wife. You know what happens if she's late to a session? Nothing. Nothing at all happens. you know, um, like you just gotta find the solution that's best for you. And I'd say when it comes to things like attendance policies, honestly, what's most important is that you discuss it in session 0. I have a quorum. I will not run a game for 2. I will run it for 3. I will not run it for 2.
Mhm.
And that's consistent across all my games. I have a game that has 3 players in it. And so every time somebody's out, we don't play it, you know? Um, but when you've got a game, especially when you've got a game that has more players than the GM's forum, you gotta be honest with yourself. This is self-awareness. Am I not going because I'm really genuinely just wiped out? No, like when you get home 20 minutes before game's supposed to start, you haven't had dinner and you've had to sit through a zoning board of adjustment. Yeah, that's legit. I was
Oh,
in bed
yeah.
for I know that's legit. If you find yourself doing it over and over, then the real question is, are you soft quitting the campaign? Because that's kind of sketch. You should just quit the campaign if you're not having fun. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, I think that's a kind of a thing everyone has to evaluate honestly to themselves, which is vastly easier said than done.
Right? Right? If everybody was just honest with themselves, a lot of things in this world would be different. Yeah. So number 10 was exalted rewards commitment, not invulnerability. And this again, exalted, yes, but so many other games, so many other characters in exalted will sometimes face overwhelming danger, impossible odds, painful sacrifices, and situations where there is no safe answer. The goal is not always survival or victory. The goal is meaningful action, dramatic truth. Sometimes characters succeed against impossible odds, sometimes they fail, sometimes they're transformed by the attempt. But scenes become memorable when characters act according to who they are, even when the outcome is uncertain. Like when my two players decided they're going to charge this guy to buy time for the others to escape. They were joking about, the players were joking about, what a pain in the butt it is to go and have to create a new character before next session. I mean, you know,
Yes, and I can say my instinct as a GM at that point is this is too cool of a moment for it to not. I don't want to say for it to not work because
mhm,
that in a sense is predetermined. But
right.
them being willing to take that chance in my
Mhm,
mind as a GM means this has to have a meaningful impact to the story overall.
mhm. And so when I exalted my characters, to me it felt like this was a dramatically appropriate time to exalt because they looked at overwhelming odds and went, "Well, I'm going to at least buy some time." And that's heroic. And
Hmm.
that's what heroes do. And every now and then in exalted, heroes get visited by the moon or the sun and they get turned into protagonists and can now fight anything in the world on equal ground. You know,
Hmm.
doesn't happen all the time, but that's what it was building to. And I didn't want to exalt. I didn't want to be like, oh well, yeah, you guys exalted now because whatever. No, I wanted it to be something awesome and dramatic.
Hmm.
And I got that for three players. And that fourth player himself of that opportunity. So now it's going to be okay. I'm not going to put it as well. Time for your redemption arc, but kind of is.
Yeah, and I think that, to what I said before, sometimes I think it's at least for me, it's very fun to kind of step back and play from that sort of removed director position where
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily thinking as the character, but I'm looking at the character and going, what would be interesting to see this character do?
Yeah. Like, what would be interesting and in line with who they are as a person?
Right.
So, yeah, and I think well, I'm not thinking, I know what happened to a certain extent was that this player gets very emotionally attached to characters.
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying it holds him back from playing in the drive it like you stole it approach of some of my other characters.
Hmm.
They will, as one of my players is like, it's not like anybody's actually going to die. Like, there's no real people involved here.
Hmm.
These are fictional characters. Uh, they're just, you know, and that's one thing. But some people like really inhabit their character. They get very, this is not the episode about bleed. Um, because managing bleed is a whole separate topic for that. I mm, we do not have enough time for that. But if it holds you back from being awesome,
Yeah, if there was a way to say I encourage or I like it when players don't play too precious with their characters, I
hmm
think but in a sense, that's also kind of telling someone how to have their fun. And I
right,
don't necessarily want to do that, but I
hmm
find it freeing, like, because, okay, so, like, and look, that's the whole thing behind pretty much all of the board games, the Morkborg derived games. Like you said, drive it like you stole it.
hmm
It may not work, but make it spectacular.
exactly. You've got this opportunity, and I'm not saying you have to do this or you're having fun the wrong way. what I'm saying is, if you want dramatic, heroic action, you have to take it.
Yeah.
You have to take that dramatic, heroic action. The GM's not going to do it for you. You
No,
know?
that's a fair point. Even if you look in be it movies, film, well, the same thing, books, television, whatever, your
Mhm.
heroes are active, not passive.
Yes, yes. They're not reckless, but they act, and they act in situations of risk.
And I think, yeah, that's the thing. I think, and you've kind of touched on that kind of do something. It doesn't have to be perfect several times.
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, Act with conviction. And I think that to me, that's some of the fun of playing role playing games is
Yeah.
I can play a character that has a conviction and as a player, I can send my character into a route that I know, like to me, this is the fun of playing like horror based games is
Hmm.
following that conviction that as a player I know is going to do bad things to my character, but it's
Oh yeah.
kind of fun to drive the car into the wall knowing that I won't actually get hurt.
Hmm. Um, at a con I was at recently, I played a game of Mothership,
Mhm.
and I lost my character, but I lost my character taking out the last remaining threat between the rest of the group and the escape pod. You know,
Mhm.
like that, I will remember that far longer than I would have remembered getting into the escape pod.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know?
I know my one experience playing Mothership, I remember dying moderately spectacularly. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember it well and I had a blast.
Yeah, there was a robot with a machine gun involved in my character's demise, but that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the other thing that I find, okay, I didn't include this because it's a very specific pet peeve, is Gary Gygax did us all a disservice by writing, okay?
Okay.
And everything is classified, everything is categorized, everything is defined. All ghosts are this have these. So when I drop a spooky ass hunter ghost on my character because they walked off with a necromantic device, well, a necromantic power focus that they didn't realize, and the ghost that it belonged to wanted it back, so he dispatched a huntsman. Um, they're like, well, do we know anything about this? I'm like, it's translucent and and creepy. And I had some artwork. I'm like, it looks like this. And I pointed out some things about its weapons and armor that their characters would know that maybe they would not have noticed. And I'm like, that's all you really know. It's scary. It's translucent. You're pretty sure it's a ghost. And they're like, well, but look, there's no catalog of all the different types of ghost. Every ghost is a little bit weird. There are some general categories. War ghosts all tend to be more or less the same. Hungry ghosts all tend to be more or less the same. But even within that, there's a lot of differences. And so I think by doing that, Gary pushed the idea of unique foes out of the consciousness of a lot of players. And
Yeah.
they expect to go and be like, well, it's a ghost. It has 7 hit die. No, not all of them do. Some of them have 2 hit die. Some of them have 20.
I, I,
How many does this guy
Revert to
have?
point 4.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Interact with the fiction first. Yes.
I mean,
Hmm.
like, and that is something I really try to do as when I'm a player is to not meta the thing, be it going back to the old school D&D. Well, a skeleton, we don't want to hit it with an edged weapon, we want a blunt weapon. Well,
Hmm.
okay, that's a little more logical in a lot of ways. I mean, like, okay, it's bone, it's going to react worse to being crushed than trying to being sliced. But like or the trolls and fire thing. Well, how
Yeah.
Steve
Dude,
the player may know that, but Gorog
well,
his dwarf probably
yeah,
doesn't.
I'll argue that Trolls and Fire probably would be in enough folk tales, folk songs, and well, my great grandfather saw a troll, and they threw torches at it, and it ran away. Um, yeah, I would say Fire and Trolls in a D&D world, yes, but that's the thing. Is like there are more creatures out there than you can fit into a monster man, and especially when you're talking ghosts, because everybody's circumstances of death are a little bit different. Everybody's will to keep continuing after death is a little bit different. Everybody's ties to the rest of the world are a little bit different. And that's before you get into the fact that some ghosts can actually like reshape other ghosts to make them more effective at certain jobs. You know?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's a lot more fun to fight the thing that you're not sure what it is.
Yeah. And or and my players, what was funny is that huntsman, my players just like we'll give you your little metal sphere back, fine. 'Cause they didn't want to fight it because they didn't know what it was. And I'll tell you that I had it pitched so that it would be a heck of a fight, but they would have won unless they just rolled like absolute garbage. They didn't know that, so they took the safer path.
Yeah. But now you've got that as a something you can reach back and do something with.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're going to see him again. Probably the next time they annoy ghost who the ghost of the necromancer. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
But I try to always work it so that decisions have ripple. It's like I I I may not know exactly what you're gonna do, but say I pick the top three most likely outcomes. I know how I know when this person's going to hear about it, when that person's going to hear about it, and what they're both going to do if, you took their side or the other guy's side. If you found a way to compromise, they're going to feel a very different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I get to me this just goes back, like I talk about it a fair amount. Breaking Bad. That was what
Mhm.
made that show so great was that those decisions had, like you said, ripples.
Yeah. And, but just because I predicted the top three, that brings us back to our final point, which is the storyteller is not protecting the correct outcome. I don't expect people to find the right answer or follow a script. Exalted works best when characters act according to their beliefs, loyalties, fears, and passions, especially under pressure. Unexpected choices create the story. And I think that's, if I had to pick one sentence as being the absolute heart of this document, unexpected choices, the story.
I think you actually said why I love tabletop RPGs so concisely that I may just steal this.
Hmm. I
Like,
mean, that's what it's here for. Yeah,
like that line, like unexpected choices create the story. That is like that's why I go to tabletop
it is.
because a computer game, regardless of all the advances in coding and this and that, it can't account for all the unexpected choices that you get
Right. You
sitting at
have
a
you have
table.
strange choices with a computer game. If that rock is not an interactable item, you can't pick it up and bash the troll's head with it. You
Right.
know, if that guard isn't designated as somebody you can kill, then you can't.
Hmm.
You know, if the story wants you to sneak through a path, you can't just say, you know what, they can't hear me if they don't. It doesn't matter if they hear me as long as they don't survive to report it. You can't make that decision. You have to sneak. You have to sneak the way they want you to sneak.
Hmm.
And even in the most open-ended sandbox, you're still constrained by what's in there, and you can't. You're not co-authoring the story in the same sense that you are with a GM.
Exactly.
You're It's the difference between writing a book and reading a choose your own adventure.
Yes, that's another good way to put it.
Hmm. Because you've got every word in the English language, and you run out. You can make some up sometimes if you're writing a book, but choose your own adventure. You've got the segments that they wrote for you.
Hmm.
You can put them together in different orders.
Yeah. Which I mean, and not that there's anything wrong with the choose your own adventure, but
Oh yeah, it's just not a. It's just not the same experience as a role playing game,
right.
and it's not why I got into this hobby all the way back in freaking Mr. Bailey's class in the seventh grade. I got into it because I wanted to make my own story. I wanted to not be sitting here looking at the book and go, idiot, why would you do that? Of course,
Ironically, it was my freshman English class that had a lot to do with me getting into RPGs in college.
yeah.
Not directly, but someone I was in the class with was
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, we're going to watch Star Wars tonight." And how I made it to 18 years old and had never seen Star Wars, I don't know, but I had.
Wow.
And not long after that, someone who I'd met on my dorm floor was like, "Yeah, we're playing a Star Wars game. We need someone to fill in. You can be the Wookiee. Like, okay, I can sit there and make bear noises. And that was how it started.
Yeah, yeah, and I got addicted to the agency, the control, the ability to do things the way I wanted to. And then I ended up at GM, and now I mostly sit here going, why did you do? No, don't do that.
But
But
like,
I get to create moments that, I ran a three characters through exaltation sequence. I had Luna appear in two different forms to two different characters simultaneously because that's just how she is, or they are, or he is, or all three at once. Who knows? Luna in Exalted treats gender like, the menu at a Chinese buffet. Like, I'll take two from column A and one from column B, and yeah. So they are a deity of liminality, of borders and boundaries and transgressing boundaries. And so the player character who decided she was going to just drop her lance and go at the Death Knight ended up a full moon, which is the warriors of the Lunars. They're
mhm,
the physically oriented, full straightforward, you know.
mhm,
So she was visited by Luna as the Bloody Huntress. Yeah, the other one that decided to charge is very much a mystic, a mortician, an ancestor cultist, deals with gods and spirits. So that character exalted a no moon and was visited by the Watcher at the Crossroads, which appears as an old crone covered in black veil. And they're both aspects of Luna, but anyway, I got to do that. I got to at one time I had a player track down the ghost of the last queen of this kingdom of this place, and they found the this magical crown. But the thing was, the crown would only activate for actual descendants of that royal family.
mhm.
And so they track down the ghost, and my player goes, she's like, do you know where any of your descendants are that we might, find one worthy to wear this crown? And I had been planning this for years. Queen just sort of looked at the character's uh the player's character. The player was male, character was a woman, and she goes, "My daughter, do you not know your own lineage?" And the whole table went dead silent. It was great. And yeah, that ended up walked out of that, tomb the rightful queen of Antang. And that was an interesting, but I get to create things that people talk about years later. And
And
that
like you said, that's
you
the moments. That's the you don't stat that out. You just it happens.
No, I don't even. Yeah, I don't think I even had much of a description of the ghost of the queen. She'd been dead for something like 700 years and was not great at holding it together anymore. So it was like amorphous gray, shadowy silhouette.
That's cool though. Like you said, that's one of those moments that you just yeah. And it like you said, the player gave you the perfect moment by asking the question.
Yes, asked that question in a way that just set me up so beautifully. I couldn't have predicted that. I couldn't have planned that. But it came together. Or yeah, we've had we've had some moments that were yeah. I can talk about it. When Cyclone wiped out 100 men in a single action, like just boom, and you know like I did not connect the dots on how those charms worked together and how they had interacted with battle groups, and you were just like, I want to do this, and I'm like, oh, looks like I gotta make some decisions. Um,
But I don't know. Like sometimes it's just like, well, that's what needs to happen.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
because in my mind, that was the Red Fang encounter outside that little village,
yep,
and it was like, well, okay, and very much a lot of times I will look at, I'll look at my character sheet and go, okay, what can I do
mhm,
to cause an effect?
right,
Not
right,
necessarily what can I do that will do the most damage.
Mhm.
but what can I
Well, that
do?
was the most damage.
Well, in that case, yes, but like, what can I do that's impactful?
Yeah.
And I think that's a whole nother conversation to have, be it with you again at some point or whatever, Steve, somebody else, about, like dealing with your players, maybe making an action that isn't statted out, and how do you adjudicate reward, etc. that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you do a thing, you
Mhm.
know, y- okay, you kind of alluded to it earlier, and I think Steve and
Right.
I joked about it a time or two, but when you use arson as an alibi for murder, what does that
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, yes, but there's, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably not a sentence you ever thought you would hear before that day.
Um, I, I I was on a server, Discord server for writers, and their question was, what's the weirdest thing? They did a question of the week that was, what's the weirdest thing you've ever looked up for writing? And I said, well, the weirdest thing I'd ever looked up was actually for a role playing game, and it was the average volume of blood in chicken. I was like,
Steve and I
that was the
joked
weirdest
about that
thing
one
I
the
ever
other
looked.
day too.
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait until you publish that episode.
And like that was, and then the follow on to that was just like, I'm going, I need something weird. Oh wait,
Yes, yes, yeah. It, just like it, I don't care who you are. If you're in session prep and you go, you know what I need to have handy? Statistics on the volume of blood in a chicken. Then honestly, I think you need help.
you know, and just because I love comedies, and something that's near and dear to most gamers' heart would obviously be Bonnie Parthon and the Holy Grail. How
Oh yeah,
different is that is the air from the whole airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow conversation in
right.
reality?
Yep, yep,
Like, I don't know.
yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a hell of a fun chat, and
Oh yeah.
hopefully it gives also some of our listeners some, maybe some insight into your perspective as to how you run, the game that they're listening to, and also is something that, people can take and put into practice in their games to just make them better. So we'll, like I said, we'll put a link to this up, maybe like a link to a Google Drive folder or something, or
Mhm.
I'll figure out some way to do
Yeah.
it.
I mean, well, it's pinned in the Discord server for
Yes, it is
anybody.
pinned currently in the general RPG section of the Discord server. Um, so it's there if anyone wants to look at it.
Yeah,
But again,
and
for anyone who's not in the Discord, we'll figure out a way to make it accessible.
And
Um,
I highly encourage anybody who wants to, take it, tweak it for your game. If it helps, great. If it's not, then don't use it. If it is, do what you got to do. Tweak it,
mhm.
modify it, fold, spindle, mutilate. I don't care.
Well, I think we've had a good conversation around this.
Hmm.
So, as I typically do with guests, is there anything else that you do that you would like to plug before we move into other fun things?
I don't really have a whole lot going on, as far as like places for people to find me, or things I've got going on. If you have any questions about the actual play or whatever, I'm active on the Me and Steve Talk RPGs Discord server,
Hmm.
and there's a whole channel for talking about Ruby and Fire, that I watch that one obsessively. And otherwise, just showing up and throw something in general, and I'll probably see it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not always the busiest Discord, but when it goes, there'll be like a flurry of activity and then not much
Oh
for a
yeah,
little bit.
yep.
You and Fat Crab, or
Mhm.
sometimes Adrian, Age of Adventure, will get into a lively discussion about something.
Yep. Yeah. It's fun. It's not high demand, and it's very laid back. So that's one of that's a lot of the reasons.
All right. Well, I think then, since we've talked about all kinds of cool stuff, let's talk
Mhm.
about more cool stuff, and it's time to do Game of the Week.
Give it a week. Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
Woohoo! All right. So, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I can go. I did track one down.
Yes, I know.
So and I'm kind of cheating by using a Grant Hewitt game, but it's called The Orc Pope is Dead. And in this, you are all playing senior orc clerics. And you and the lads went out drinking with the Pope last night, and now he's dead. And the Orcish Church of Bog al Karuk is without a leader. Can you and your mates, esteemed clerics all, work out which one of you it's going to be, and then outdo or discredit your rivals to claim the most prestigious title in the Orc Nation? So, yeah, you roll up what the tenets of Bog al Karuk are that you cannot violate during the game, for things like get stuck in, can't refuse a fight, or don't make me come down there, no arguing. Then there's a chart for the divine retribution of Bog al Karuk, because this is the Orcish Holy Week, so he's very active. And, it starts with a blinding headache and gets worse from there. And then you have to do penance for when you violate it. They have some rival wannabe popes that you can roll up, like Spag Moonshadow, who is in deep with the High Elf. And they have miracles, but basically what you're doing is the resolution is you grab a d4, d6, d8, d10, d12, and you roll for each action. You pick the dice and you roll it. The higher, the better. But then you have to discard that dice.
Mm-hmm.
When you've discarded all of your dice, then you grab another set of 5 and start again. So you can't just be like d12, d12, d12. You got to go, you've got to have that d4 in there, and the best a d4 can get is success with complications.
Aha.
Yes. A d6 can get up to 6 to 9 is regular success, and then 10 or higher is critical success. So you only have 2 out of every 5 actions can potentially become a critical success.
Grant is so good at creating simple mechanics that just work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, and I mean, it's a one-page RPG. It's a pay what you want. Suggested is $3. It's on itch.io. It's just, and because Bog al Karak, we know it's got continuity with the Havoc Brigade.
Yes, which is just wonderfully fun.
Oh my God, yeah. We can't use that for Game of the Week because, you've done entire episodes on it.
Well, that's actually how we discovered it.
Really?
Was one of us found it for Game of the Week.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about some of his other works wherein, like, for instance, it didn't say anywhere in the rules the dog couldn't play basketball, which is you're the team that lost to Air Bud. You never recovered. Now it's one of the friend group's wedding, and the specter of that dog is going to ruin it like it's ruined everything else you've ever cared about. But yeah.
Oh, his stuff is just so much fun. His lighthearted stuff, especially. I've never played, I haven't played Spire or Heart.
Right.
But I've heard good things about them. But they're obviously not as lighthearted as what he's best known for.
Yep. His most recent one is called Pig at a Wedding. You're literally playing somebody who wants to ruin somebody else's wedding by releasing a pig at the dramatically appropriate time.
Oh, I know too many people who would want to play that.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds and yeah, his stuff is a lot of fun. All right, well that sounds really cool. I found something. I haven't actually bought it and read it yet, but this sounds like a really fun thing, and it might even be appropriate for someone who has, say, younger children that want to get into RPGs. Because in this game that's called Rifts and Raptors, so just read the description. You've fallen backwards through time, fam, like 70 million years. Not entirely sure how you got there. We're pretty sure those aliens, the lobsters, or at least that's what we call them, are responsible. It's crazy dangerous here. There's dinosaurs everywhere, proper ones, not just the boomer kind. And the lobsters have giant killer robots, and sheesh, we're just kids. And so you've got some lobster tech There's a brain link that you can somehow control dinosaurs, and this dino disc thing that lets you summon them from this weird pocket dimension. So what this kind of game does is it puts kids back into the Cretaceous, but it
Mm-hmm.
also blends in like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dinosaur Kid, King. It it just seems cool and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's um you only use two dice, D6s and D12s,
Uh-huh.
and one of which is for how good you are at it, and the other
Mm-hmm.
is for how hard it is. Um,
Mm.
Again, not having read the whole thing, I don't know, but it can't be that complicated, right? Um,
Right, right. Well, it also claims to be educational.
well, it's about dinosaurs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know.
Educating you about the charismatic macrofauna of the late Cretaceous.
Right.
So,
It seems like a good time now on drive through the PDFs, $5, 25 pages. Uh, but like I don't know, it seems like a fun thing to just kind of have in your files.
I, I'm gonna buy it and see if my kid wants to play it. How about that?
There you go. I didn't know how that worked with the tiny human. If
Um, she she uh she has played a couple of she's played a couple of games. We she gets very twitchy about making decisions, but that is apparently developmentally appropriate for 6 and 7 year olds.
seems to be
Yeah, but yeah, I'm downloading it now.
cool. Well, you'll have to give us a report on the Discord as to.
Yeah,
I may buy it, but I haven't decided for sure yet. Uh,
you also don't have a convenient kid to test it on.
what was that?
You also don't have a convenient 7 year old to test it on.
Well, I do have a 6-year-old nephew, but
Oh, well, that'll work. I mean, all 6 year olds in the history of 6 year olds love dinosaurs. That's just
I
how it is.
mean, he loves the Jurassic Park series.
Oh yeah, dinosaurs.
Hmm.
Okay, this is also I haven't found the 6-7 joke in here yet, but your moves are beast mode, clock it, lock in, and riz. Beast mode, you overcome sort of physical problem. Clock it, you assess the situation. Lock in, you concentrate on a task. And riz, you convince someone of something, whether through charming them, lying through your teeth, or intimidating them. Yes, this is full of Gen, what the heck? Okie dokie. If both dice show a 6+, you have goated the roll. This is some Gen Alpha. This is some Gen Alpha brain rot stuff, but it's funny. Oh my god.
Well,
Uh,
I'm glad that you. This may be the first time in the history of Game of the Week that someone has actually just bought the game
yeah.
immediately.
Hmm. All right. This is kind of funny because okay, so it's got conditions. So the statuses, like conditions in some games, like dazed, embarrassed, injured, or scared.
Oh, this is definitely designed for kids. It certainly seems,
Hmm.
or at least
Yep.
that kids would be able to play, easily. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And the combat rules like basically don't involve the kids at all. Says combat is about battles between dinosaurs and sometimes giant alien robots. As your kids, being directly involved in combat would inevitably end very badly.
That's a valid point.
Yeah, yeah. But if you can brain link with a Tyrannosaurus, then the fact that you're 3 feet tall no longer matters.
Also a valid point.
Hmm. Oh, we got playbooks. Okay. The jock, the loyal friend who is low key smart and easygoing, nerd, social awkward but super smart, the outsider, independent and savvy, the Sigma, popular, attractive, and dominant.
Oh,
Sigma,
this is Camp Cretaceous meets
uh-huh.
Pokemon the RPG.
Yeah, yeah. And the troublemaker.
Yeah. Oh, this is absolutely Camp Cretaceous meets Pokemon the RPG.
I'm loving this. This is hilarious. Oh wow.
All right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I am. Oh, good grief. Yeah. This looks like it's gonna be a blast.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's
I am.
25 bucks. Like
I'm
that's
going to
not
buy
bad.
this too because I can. All right. Well, sounds like we've had a rather successful game of the week because I'm going to go get Orc Pope is Dead too because I for some reason haven't yet.
That seems like an oversight.
Yes, it most likely is, but I've just had too much fun with Havoc Brigade.
Yep.
But that's actually a reason to go get it. So, all right. Well, I think with that, thank you very much for taking the time to come have a chat with us, Deck.
No worries. No worries. Maybe next time we can work in 3 hours notice.
Well, you volunteered. You go,
I
I
did
can talk for at least 45 minutes about this. And I went,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yes, I did say that, so I did bring it on myself.
In fairness, though, you had also previously mentioned, at some point, coming on to talk about, be it the campaign or whatever,
Oh yeah.
if people, we end up getting a lot of like questions and stuff that
Mm-hmm.
maybe come in on the Discord. Maybe we do another kind of a cast rap chat or something sometime. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. Thank you for running that game too, because I'm having a blast with it, and especially after parts of tonight's conversation, I really ought to go read the PDF I bought for the campaign.
Right.
uh, but yeah, thank you very much, and for everyone out there listening, thanks for taking the time to listen. Do the whole be it like, subscribe, whatever thing that the algorithms appreciate and whatever. You can check us out. We've mentioned our Discord a bunch of times. We also, if you're so inclined, have a Patreon. Currently, the only thing I'm really getting out special for Patreon is I do put up the full session to the AP, usually a day or two before the last episode of a session comes out, but I put them back together so it's like one continuous episode instead of broken into usually 3 parts, which I know isn't much, but it's given the fact that, day job and all this other stuff, there's only so much I can do.
Fair enough.
I try, but some days life is life.
Yeah.
But like I said, with that being said, any closing words on your part?
Not a whole lot. Just play more games.
Yeah.
Play more games if you can.
Sounds good. So I think with that, we'd like to remind everyone to just be kind to each other and get out there and play some RPGs.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at @andrpgs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.